I'm Dick Cooper. I was the first curator at the Alabama Music Hall of Fame, and I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the many studios that are in Sheffield, Alabama. Widget Recording Studio, which is located on Jackson Highway, was constructed in the early 1970s, and soon after it opened, it had its first hit recording on a group called Sailcat. The song Motorcycle Mama was a top 10 single written by Johnny Weicker and sung by Court Pickett. The band was composed and produced by Pete Carr, who later became one of the premier guitar players in sessions in the Shoals area. Initially, Quimby Studio was constructed on Broadway Avenue in Sheffield, with the proceeds that Quinn Ivy received from the recording of Percy Sledge's When a Man Loves a Woman. The studio was also the home of two very prominent record labels, Quimby Music and South Camp Records, which were pretty well received in the soul and rhythm and blues categories. 3614 Jackson Highway was the original home of Muscle Shoals Sound. The studio had previously been home to Beavis Recording Studio, which was a small 4-track facility. And when Muscle Shoals Sound took over in 1969, they raised it initially to an 8-track facility, and shortly thereafter to a 16-track facility. The studio was a home to records by the Rolling Stones, Bob Seger, Paul Simon, and many, many other artists, both in pop and rock and rhythm and blues. Pete Carr put his initial studio on Hillcrest Avenue in this house. It later housed a recording studio owned by Lenny LeBlanc, and several records were recorded here by both Pete and Lenny. Quinn Ivy, who originally started out as the owner of Quinn Ivy's Toontown record store, soon built a recording studio across the street from that facility at 104 East 2nd Street in Sheffield. The 104 site was where Percy Sledge recorded When a Man Loves a Woman, which was the first #1 record to come out of the Shoals area, and it was on Atlantic Records. The empty lot here is where that 104 was located, the studio. That studio was called Norala for North Alabama. He took the proceeds that he made at that facility and built the Quimby Studio on Broadway in Sheffield, which he later sold to David Johnson, and the name was changed to Broadway Sound Studio. Ralph Rhodes opened Studio 414 at his building on North Montgomery Avenue in the 80s, and several studios have occupied that building from time to time. I had a small facility in there at one time and worked on an album by Panama Red that I was producing. Others in there were the initial Nut House Studio and several other facilities there. The Nut House, owned by Jimmy Nutt, is in a former bank building on 4th in Sheffield. He has recorded people like Jason Isbell, Boombox, and many, many other great new artists from the Shoals area. Cypress Moon Studio is now a movie studio and recording studio, but originally it was a Naval Reserve station. In the late 70s, the members of the Muscle Shoals Rhythm section purchased the building and converted it into a 2-studio complex that was the location for recordings by Bob Dylan, Delbert McClinton, John Prine, the Oak Ridge Boys, many, many, many great artists. In the mid-'80s, they sold the facility to Malaco Records, a blues label out of Jackson, Mississippi, and as a result, people like Bobby Bland and Johnny Taylor and many great blues artists and rhythm and blues artists were brought in to record there.